Hello, hello, welcome to Tabor, welcome to historic town, the name of which is related to a biblical name of Mount Tabor, or Tabor maybe with the English pronunciation. It's the town which was founded in 1420 by so-called Hussites, followers of Jan Hus. Jan Hus was a reformer of Catholic Church, and for his reforming ideas he was burned at the stake. He was killed in 1415 in the town of Constance in Germany. And his followers then later on got into an open conflict against the Catholic Church. It resulted in the series of wars, very serious wars, where at the beginning Hussites were very successful. I will mention the main commander Jan Žižka of Trocnov. We are going to see his statue. And let me invite you for a walk through the town step by step. I would like to introduce the city that started first as a castle up on the hill, and then later on it became this Hussite town. So let me switch to another side. So here we are looking at Bechyňská Street with a bigger traffic. We are already within the fortification of this town, and we are looking at the tower which is known as Kotnov. Kotnov Castle was founded by Czech king Přemysl Otakar II in the second half of the 13th century, but actually even prior that there used to be a settlement that was owned by the very famous noble family of Vítkovec. But now let's have a look at this gate. It is so-called Bechyňská brána because it is in direction to town of Bechyně, and it is the only preserved gate of once very, very sophisticated system of fortification of this town of Tabor. There were walls all around, even in several lines. It was up on the hill, so there were steep slopes down, and the whole thing actually was designed as a military fortress. Well, of the castle that I have mentioned of the 13th century, not much was left. Is this tower. It's accessible to publics. You can climb up and you can enjoy beautiful view of the city. But unfortunately, the fire in 1532 completely destroyed the castle, or so heavily damaged the castle that only one tower of, it's believed that there were 4 of them or even 5 of them. Later, the remaining part of the castle was converted into a brewery. From the 16th century there was a brewery, and then the brewery was even enlarged in the 19th century. Have a look at the beautiful symbol of this town of Tabor on this gate. And actually the gate used to be closed. There was a drawbridge. You can recognize that there were the special devices to lift up the bridge. And let me show you the map of the town. It's a historic monument, so named Tabor by the biblical Mount Tabor, which is located in Israel. And there is a story that Jesus Christ climbed up this Mount Tabor together with his disciples, and there on this biblical hill his disciples could see his conversion. Suddenly he turned pale and he spoke to prophets, and the sound was also around like God was talking to him, and God was calling Jesus his son. So Tabor, it's really historic place. By that time it was also believed that the end of the world is coming soon, and the only people, only if people move up to the sacred hills, so then they will be saved. So that was the idea of Tabor. Over there we can also see the name. There is now a museum, and the tower, as I said, it's accessible. And the gate from the inner part of the fortification is quite decorative. Well, let's now walk through this town. Nowadays, it's not only the historic center. Nowadays, town of Tabor is second largest town in the southern part of the Czech Republic. České Budějovice, it's larger, and then Tabor is the next with 34,000 inhabitants. But when this town was founded by Hussites in 1420, it was obviously smaller, but yet it had a very dense population because there was a moment when there were up to 3,000 inhabitants. And obviously to fit in, they had to build their houses closer and closer to each other, and where there used to be the gardens, there were not any more gardens, but new houses. And I would like to let you see some of those narrow streets. So let's turn to this one on the left. It's called Růžová, Rose Street. And let's take a walk. Cars can drive here, but I think it's not so easy. It's relatively narrow. And now so far there are very few tourists. You see that I'm walking here alone, and you can enjoy it. I can share it with you. So have a look around. During the last years, most of the buildings were restored, repaired, and you can see this very historic, romantic atmosphere. I will take you through one of the most narrow streets. It's here on the right. Looks like a black hollow, but it's not. It is really a street. Well, quite narrow, really. Hard for like two slim people to share this space. But they can wait. And coming out, we can find one of numerous water fountains. Water was very important. Where there's no water, there's no life. So the town is actually located on two rivers, the larger Lužnice and the smaller Tismanický potok, and the smaller one was blocked, and a dam was created below this town. From that dam they started to pump the water up, and from the special water tower that I'm going to show you in a short while, they conducted the water through pipes. You see, there are cars, but very few. The water was conducted into these water fountains. This is one of them. Let's now continue. Let me take you through this street, for instance, and straight ahead there are towers on the square. One is the town hall, the other one is the church. So Jan Hus was a reformer who had many followers, and if you imagine that this Jan Hus was killed, his followers became very radical, and it resulted by so-called defenestration. Defenestra, that's from Latin. It means from the window. And in the Czech history, you can find several cases, several historic dates when you hear about how politically important people in critical moments used to be thrown or happened to be thrown out of the windows. So that's called defenestration. And the first one in 1419 started this period of Hussite wars, 1419. Only a year later, these Hussites, they founded this town, as I said, with a biblical name. Now we can see Town Hall. This tower, it's a part of the local town hall, and town halls in the past times, but even in the present, they are supposed to symbolize the richness and significance and beauty of the city. So it was this case. Nowadays it's restored, repaired. In a short while, we'll get through this like a passageway, and in a short while we'll be on the central square, so you can enjoy the view. And here we are entering a square. So important moments. I spoke about foundation, 1420. They were like an independent town. They did not want to recognize any rulers, but eventually their independence in financial matters, in military matters, finished when they were besieged by army of King George of Poděbrady. So imagine 3,000 inhabitants, and the army that came here had almost 17,000 soldiers. So it was really not easy. So the citizens of this town had to recognize and accept the rule of this George of Poděbrady. But he was the ruler, he was the king who actually tried to keep together Catholics with Protestants in a good relationship. Later on, there was another defenestration in 1618. It was at Prague Castle. Two governors and their secretary were thrown out of the windows by Protestants. Those governors were Catholics, and they symbolized the Habsburg rule. Afterwards, people of this town of Tabor, they were on the side of non-Catholic nobles, but they were punished for this because Czech Protestants were later on defeated in battle on White Mountain in 1620, and on 21st of June of 1621, 27 noblemen were executed. So you can imagine that within a short time the punishment came also to Tabor. In 1621, Tabor was attacked by imperial army led by General Madaras, and it was completely plundered. The 30 Years' War actually started by that defenestration in 1618. And at the end of the 30 Years' War, Tabor was again occupied by Swedish army and once more plundered. But life went on and the town recovered. Just only that it was not anymore a Catholic, a Protestant town, but it was influenced by Catholics. The Augustinian monks came to Tabor, and they later established a monastery. And it was all in order to spread the Roman Catholic religion. Now, I would like to show you some beautiful buildings. I will then continue the history. This is a late Gothic architecture, the building that you are looking at. But there's also a beautiful so-called sgraffito decoration on this building. there is a date, 1553. Let's have a look at it closer. Can you see it? It's right here. This so-called sgraffito decoration, that's a special way of decorating facades by laying 2 layers of plaster, one on top of the other. The darker is darker, lower is darker, on the surface is white, and it's scratched away. Before I leave from this place, have a look at the tower. And there is a special dial. Can you recognize? From the other side, the dial looked as an ordinary dial, and this one has one dial with one hand and shows all 24 hours, so that's quite unique. And here we have the town hall, which was under construction for quite a while. They started in 1440 and it was completed only in 1521. Then they had to redo it after the fire. 2 big fires actually in the 16th century heavily damaged the town. Last year it was 600 years from foundation, and celebrations are extended till these days. If you have a look at the church of the Lord's Conversion on Mount of Tabor, or Tabor. First, there was a wooden church built up on the hill, but it was soon damaged and there was a need to redo it. So the church has today the appearance of the 17th century, however, with Renaissance gables. The tower is accessible. You can see above the dial, there are the windows, and you can climb up and enjoy the view of the city. It's one of the highest towers in the southern part of the Czech Republic. Its height is 78 meters. You can see it's pretty high. So many steps to climb up. We can have a look into the church just quietly. We can peep in. There are some Baroque altars, and there's also a neo-Gothic altar. I'm not sure if it's open. Let me show you the name. Transfiguration is the term used here. Transfiguration. It's actually a religious holiday that's celebrated on the 6th of August. So I will be quiet now, just have a look around. So I didn't want to disturb, but the central altar was in a neo-Gothic style of the 19th century, while the side altars were Baroque. But there was a very interesting ceiling, especially above the central altar, because it was a late Gothic, it had a late Gothic appearance. Here we have this statue from the end of the 19th century of the Hussite commander, Jan Žižka of Trocnov. The man has covered eye. As a matter of fact, He had never been defeated. He was successful from the very beginning. Just only that he died relatively young, but at the end of his life he was completely blind. But he was expert in strategical way of conducting wars, using simple equipment, carriages, the tools that farmers used for their work, and they were able to fight against well-equipped soldiers of the Crusaders that were sent into Bohemia to fight against Hussites. There's also a beautiful Renaissance, that's of the 16th century, water fountain with a knight in the middle. Let's have a look closer. Once more, a lovely view on the town hall. And here we have the fountain. So here we have a nice view of the soldier who holds the flag, and it was a symbol of the right of the city to organize markets. So it was a very important income for the city. Once more, we are looking at the church, and we are also looking at statue of the famous army leader Jan Žižka of Trocnov. The statue is undergoing the restoration. It's almost completed, but it has not finished yet. I would like to mention also that this city has absolutely fantastic system of cellars. They are in several levels, 2, 3 floors, 16 meters deep, and they interconnect the buildings. So here you can see the sign Strašidelné podzemí. It's not open, but if you come here, maybe you manage to come in time when it is open. So here it is, every day it is supposed to be open, but it is not open. So, hard to say, never mind. Here it is. If you ever come to Tabor, this is the place where you can actually find the entrance. Now let's continue. I can walk a little faster. You can admire the beauty of those Renaissance gables. Here and there there's some piece of more new architecture, I mean the one we are looking at. But if you have a look in this direction of the square, the view is very nice. Another lovely, very well decorated building, it's this one. It's like a late Gothic. You see the gables with those ornamentations and even the painting. This is a city hall. This is where the local municipality has the office. But today it's Sunday, so it's closed. It's windy, I hope you can hear me. Now let's walk through this street, and in a short while we reach the square where in the past times there used to be a poorhouse, and now there's a Church of the Holy Cross. And it's used by Orthodox Church. It's this one. Let's have a look closer at the sign. So, Hospital Chapel of St. Cross. Originally, chapel was dedicated to St. Elizabeth. But let's continue. In a short while, I will show you the water tower, and also that big dam I spoke about. big dam that was created in 1492. That means the year when America was discovered by Christoph Columbus. Here we have another water fountain. So Market Square, it's a place where there used to be on a side another big city gate, and down below a large water, like artificial pond, was created. But I want to show you the water tower, which is from the 16th century. It had to be redeveloped after fire. There were two fires in 1532 and in 1553. Two devastating fires. During the first one, more than 300 buildings were destroyed, and during the second one, still almost 250. So this tower, it's a former water tower. Through ingenious system, the water was pumped from Jordan Lake or pond with a dam. So you can have a look, it's open to visitors. So here we have water tower. And let's have a look. At the moment you can over there recognize that there is a water, but there will be a place from where the view is much better. In a short while you will have a better view. So at the moment we are looking at the dam. So can you imagine 1592? It is the oldest artificially created pond in Europe of this kind that was designed for to serve as a supply of water. Today it has some beaches, it's open to fishing. Look at this charming place. Another of the narrow streets. So fortifications were very important. They were in two lines, the front, then space, and the high walls. There were three gates or three sides where from it was possible to enter. But now only that Bechyňská brána, the first one that we saw, is in existence. The Prague Gate, which was not far from here, the Prague Gate was demolished. But at the moment we are by the building that's called Střelnice. We can translate it as a shooting range. And this shooting range was built at the end of the 19th century for the local association of Tabor shooters. So here you can see much better this dam called Jordan. There is an interesting staircase you can climb up. Directly from the dam. In 1621, actually, the Imperial Army attacked the city from this side. Not through the gates, but from this side. And they were successful. These buildings are interesting. They are not old. They are from 1936. It's called Gaussové domy, 1936. in this style to imitate Gothic architecture. So somewhere here there used to be that Prague gate, and it was like of 3 parts, like triple gate to enter the city from this side. Now we are looking at the local municipal theater. It's named after Czech composer Oskar Nedbal. Over there we see the name, Divadlo Oskara Nedbala. It's this like a twin building, end of the 19th century. Oskar Nedbal was a famous composer who was actually a student of Antonín Dvořák, and I'm quite sure you know Antonín Dvořák. Look at these interesting buildings, all decorated by graffito decoration. One of the most beautiful ones is here on the left. We'll have a look at it from the side. So people are again out. All the restaurants are finally opened after coronavirus. The life is back in the city. So look at this decoration and those figural motifs and floral motifs. So very pretty, mid-1500s. Another interesting one is this, and you can find a cannonball. Here, can you see that black spot? And there is a date, 1648. So that was that year when Tabor was occupied by Swedish army at the very end of the 30 Years' War. We are on Prague Street, because it's in direction to Prague Gate. There was a Prague Gate, direction to Prague. And we are returning now to Central Square. So you can admire these charming streets. The town was nicely restored, repaired during the last years. Another cannonball, much bigger, is here on the right. The reason why, it's not that the cannon would fly and hit the wall and stayed in the wall. It was believed that if you preserve the cannonball and you put it visibly on the facade, it may serve as a protection against repeating. So it means it would never be hit by cannonball anymore because it's already there. There's one more here. I see the small one. Can you see? Right here. And then there is another beautiful building with portraits of people of 16th century and also the war scenes. Look at the decoration of the door, or doors, actually 2 of them. Once more, I think it's very pretty. It's that so-called graffito decoration. If to get closer, you can recognize like 2 layers of plaster, brighter on the surface and this rougher, darker below. So then the parts of white are scratched away in order to create these various ornaments. Another interesting street to walk through. I wanted to show you this building. Maybe it's not the most decorative, but it's called Kostnice House, and it's to symbolize the partnership in between Tabor and the town of Konstanz, Kostnice in Czech language, in Germany. Konstanz was actually the place where Jan Hus, a reformer, was killed by the church. He was burned in 1415. And here we are returning back. We are back on the square. Another angle, it's very windy. So we made a circle through this part of the city, and in a short while we'll turn left and we'll have a look to the left. And I would like to mention that there also used to be a Jewish population, however very small. The first Jews came to this place in 1618. There were only 2 families. There was no ghetto. In 1830 there were 20 families. But then with the emancipation of Jews, most of the Jews started to move away to larger cities, to Prague especially. Many moved to Prague and to Brno. In 1930, we know that there were altogether 265 people but then the World War II came and most of the locals perished in concentration camps. They used to have a very nice synagogue. The synagogue survived, surprisingly survived the war. Not the cemetery, unfortunately. There was a Jewish cemetery. It was completely destroyed, but the synagogue survived. But since very few people returned after the war, the synagogue was then used as a storage place. And in the year 1977, so under communism, it was demolished. So it's not in existence anymore. It was very pretty in Moorish style from the end of the 19th century. I will show you where it was, but we have to reach the place. Today there is a parking place. So in meanwhile, enjoy. There's another water fountain. You see, it was all supplied from the water of Jordan Lake. And you just make a few steps away from the central square and streets are empty. Tabor or Tabor. So here we are. In a moment I will show you where the synagogue used to stay, but it's not in existence anymore. There's only a memorial plaque. So where the parking is right here. You see cars. This is the site of once a Jewish synagogue. And you can find very simple, very modest, very inconspicuous plaque, Táborská synagoga, so it's right here. There now you find a parking place. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's, I think, everything what I wanted to show you. I think this is what you can take as an inspiration. You can come here and park, for instance, here and take a walk through narrow streets. So here I am. Tabor is behind me. For me it's a beautiful place. Take it as an invitation. Come here and spend here at least half day, maybe the whole day, stay overnight. There's a lot to see. There's also a famous place of pilgrimage, so-called Klopoty, You can go to Bechyně Castle, not far from here, and you can also explore the underground. You can climb up the towers, the tower of the former castle, the tower of the church, and there's a lot to do. So stay well, stay healthy, and I hope to see you soon in the Czech Republic, and it would be my greatest pleasure to be your tour guide. All the best. Goodbye.